All right, Nick. So I just finished reading The Keep, the book, and I just finished watching The Keep, the movie.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about films that are like based on books and how you kind of have to separate the book from the film because really no one who's making that movie cares that you read the book. They're making a movie and it's got to be standing on its own. But I think this almost requires the book.
The book better. Today we're going to talk about The Keep, a movie that nobody wants to talk about. It's not owned. Paramount doesn't want to talk about it. Michael Mann, the director, doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Nobody really wants to own up to it. We discovered it. We remember it. We're going to talk about.
We want to talk about it.
We want
absolutely, and that's what we're going to do.
Hi, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and with me is Kyle Goethe from
GoatFilmReviews.com. Check it out.
Today we're going to talk about the 1983 already tailored. It was bound to fail before it even got started. The movie, The Keep, Michael Mann's movie, his dream goal, based on the book by F. Paul Wilson. It's his first novel. It came out in 1981, part of his The Adversary Cycle. And the cycle spawns off a great character called Repairman Jack, but does not is featured into The Keep. Filming almost, as soon as this book came out, filming rights were a bidding war. People wanted to make this movie right away. And here we are, and nobody wants to talk about it, and people have forgotten about it.
Well, it has definitely, I mean, the first DVD for the film was released in 2017. Like, that's how long it took for the film to reach that. I was looking for a copy of this movie, a hard copy, and it was really tough to find. There are VHSs available, there are Laserdiscs available, but you got to really hunt down a copy of this movie if you don't want to just get a stream of it. It's a tough movie to find. Michael Mann disowned it. He doesn't want to talk about it.
No.
And I can't blame him because the film, his original cut was 3.5 hours. The movie I watched, a little over 90 minutes.
And that's what happens when you cut something down to its, to the stub, that you don't get anything. And it has an ending that doesn't really fit very well. It's different from the book. In fact, you want to make it like the ending of the book. But definitely there's some components to it. If you know Apocalypse from X-Men, truly this got inspiration from this movie.
Yeah, and it's weird because, again, like, I'm not here to talk about what the film did that was different than the book, but I'm coming at it now from a person who's read the book.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like they tried to do some different things with what the character, this villainous character, is, but in the book we get a very classical depiction of how we would assume him to be. This is a very Apocalypse, Thanos, like glowing eyes, breathy waves and fog and stuff, and there's some really interesting visuals that he brings to the film that I think are amazing. That tower of fog that's carrying Magda's character at one point is a truly incredible piece. Like, I wanted to stay in that moment because I didn't want anything else to come up out of it.
Which is a great special effect for 83.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got to be a moving fog machine. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts with that fog presence. It's a great effect that's used to excess in the film, and it does work pretty well. It's just when you get down to it, it's odd to me that this film was chopped 2 hours out of it, and they picked some of the things they picked to keep, and they cut some of the things they chose to cut. Yeah. There's elements of the film that you could have streamlined by eliminating some of these subplots if you really wanted to cut stuff out, but they throw these subplots in and over-explain everything. But it still is nonsensical when you watch the film.
And you also get a gratuitous nudity scene that didn't have to be in there.
And I'll tell you right now, I'm all for whatever you want to put in your movie, but that was one of the worst sex scenes I've ever seen. There's a lot of just...
It's just awkward and uncomfortable. It's just like, you take it out of the movie, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't see what that moment gave. There's also this...
Yeah.
There's this whole, like, our main character, of course, played by Scott Glenn. His name is Glacken,
but they call him Glenn. Yeah.
And his whole subplot of who he is and what he is, they keep alluding to it in the film, and they keep, like, telling you. They give a little bit too much at times, but then they don't give what you need to give. There's a whole part there where, like, the Nazis are looking for him. Yeah. That part could have been virtually taken out of the film because it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, if we're looking for time cut, it's not necessary in the movie. We get our first English language debut for Ian McKellen and Jurgen Prochnov, who both are great in the movie, but they're not given characters, really. They're given
lines.
They're given direction in that way, and I think they do the best they can with what they have. But the film is an overall mess.
And at the beginning of the movie is phenomenal. You can see where they're going to go with this. It's almost very dreamy like, and you see like Morgan's how they cut it. You know, so many cuts, like 20 of them, for just a truck drove into the village.
Oh yeah.
And you see how this is very much a dream sequence, and you see the keep in front of him, and you see the foreboding that he has to. Okay, we have to deal with this.
Which it's a different looking keep than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Having read the book, I visioned
the book is
in my head some
you know
way.
what a keep is. It's inside a castle. It's supposed to be small, but here in the movie, it's gargantuan.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of the like Sith temple on Exegol in the Rise of Skywalker. It's like this reverse pyramid in a way that kind of does that, and I really love the production design. I think the keep itself looks great. I think the town that's outside it looks better in the film than I envisioned it reading the book. I felt like it was more well
I think
placed.
the set design, the art direction for this, and even the struggles of making the monster still pay off.
They still look amazing, even though it's kind of weird and it kind of doesn't work at times. But like, it's still, I love the ambition of the film. You know, there's no way you'd ever allow an Irishman length horror movie like The Keep to actually exist. But it's just weird to me that again, like, things are chosen in the editing bay that just don't make sense. But yeah, you're right. The first half of the film,
you can see where it's going to go.
Plots it out well, I think, and they streamline a lot of stuff. Prashnav's Vermin, who's running, you know, his German, his non-SS German crew, and I love how they introduce him. I love how they introduce Kampfer, and I think they streamline a lot of that stuff from the book. They take what they need to get these introductions into play, and same thing with Magda and her father. I just think, like, as the film goes on, they start to lose the character in service of getting as many story points in as they can.
That's exactly my point. Cinematographer is Alex Thompson. Mm-hmm. Get familiar with this film, Scotty, because he's done cinematography for some of the best movies that you've probably ever heard, like Excalibur, Demolition Man, Alfred the Great. He's done Labyrinth, Year of the Dragon, which is a kind of a sleeper movie that nobody really about, but a really excellent film. He outdone himself here with this movie, and they had to do reshoots and all that stuff, and he was taken out. But it's sad that
it's frustrating to me because, again, like, this is like one of several films that he was able to shoot that were taken away and re-edited without him. Another one was Alien 3, which I talked about earlier this summer too. He shot that thing. It's a gorgeous looking movie, and then it was edited around him. And I think, again, like, he shoots these lovely looking visuals. And if there's one thing that Keep has that is tantamount the best element of the film, it's the visual sense that he puts to it. Yeah. From the production design to his shooting it. I think the only other thing that really reaches that level is the score by Tangerine Dream.
Yeah, which is weird because here this movie is supposed to take place in World War II, and we got this '80s synthesis.
It took me a moment because I didn't really like it at the beginning of the film, but the moment that we get our first death in the group,
which is fast,
which is very, very well done, I think.
God, yes.
The moment that we get that first death, I think the score kind of ticks into the feeling of what's going on more than the time period. Everything before that, you're kind of like, is this the 40s? I mean, I thought it was, but it kind of feels like the 80s.
That sequence where they try to, like, pluck silver out of the wall, and that whole sequence of what happens and transpires, phenomenal filmmaking.
Yeah, it's again different than the book, but that's where that one really works. Like, that change is really worthwhile. Overall, I think it's a hot mess of a film that's got some really cool elements to it, and it's more upsetting when you've read the book because you know what it could be. Like, this is exactly the kind of film that I think could work today. If it was remade, if it was reattempted today, I think this film could really work.
It's every time somebody brings up, have you seen The Keep? And immediately my reflex is the potential, what it could have been. It could have been one of the most phenomenal looking horror movies of all time, because we've seen what Michael Mann has done later in his career with Manhunter and Heat, what he's capable of.
Well, if there's one thing that's good about this film not doing well, it's that Michael Mann decided afterwards to stick to television for a while, which means he created one of my favorite shows, Miami Vice, which is one of my top 10 favorite shows of all time. So thanks, Michael Mann, for moving to TV.
Shows he had no style.
Yeah. Yes, he definitely has style in what he's doing.
Style comes first, and then we'll worry about everything else.
Yeah, and again, we talked about Mandy last week, but style over substance, it feels like Mandy's has a lot of style, less of a story. This film has so much story that he's trying to convey, but the story doesn't really work in the film as the style does. Yeah. And I think overall, it's too bad that we don't have Michael Mann coming back to work on this movie, like put it back together, knowing that he had so much extra footage that was shot and not there. I think there's a great movie in all that footage. It's just the way that they chose the pieces to put into this 90 minutes that doesn't work.
You say it better because I just the potential is there to be phenomenal.
Yeah, everyone keeps talking about release the Snyder cut. I want the man cut. I want him like forcibly put in a room, recut this movie.
And if it doesn't make it, if it's all chunky, I don't care. Just show us everything, right?
Yeah. And that's why it was most disappointing for me looking for a physical copy, because usually if I do that, it's kind of because I want to find like other cuts of the film. Like, me, I'll watch a good director's cut to see what the other director envisioned. And I think Michael Mann is one of those guys too that he's done a few director's cuts, and I think the director's cuts that he does are better than the theatrical
They always
edition.
are. He's one of those rare that if director cut hears something off the floor.
Yeah, whereas like a Ridley Scott, I think, is sometimes hit and miss. Sometimes he focuses on weird things in his director's cuts. Michael Mann always makes his film better in the director's edition. This is one I know he could do. He just doesn't want to because he's so upset about the way the film turned out. F. Paul Wilson also did not like the movie.
No, and I can understand why. There's some components of dualities of ancient mythologies and playing and really just absolute massacring Nazis far better in the book than they do in the movie.
Yeah, there's a significant lack of violence in the second act because they're trying to move along so quickly.
Yeah.
But I remember reading that F. Paul Wilson wrote a story called Cuts, I think, a short story about a author who puts a voodoo curse on a director who mangled his work. And I think there's only one book of his that was turned into a movie. So we're just trying to put together the ideas here.
And if you remake the movie, Ian McKellen will be the age that he was supposed to be. He's at the age now where he's supposed to be in this movie.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, when I heard he was in the film, I envisioned him as Camphor. So, like, reading the book, I was thinking Ian McKellen, because I'd seen Apt Pupil, and I'd seen him in all these films that kind of deal with Nazis, and he's always kind of been, like, in hit or miss with that. But I think, great actors in the film. I think it's one of those things where it's...
I think it's Gabriel Byrne's first movie.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything before that. It's one of those things where all the pieces work on their own, but just messing up the editing makes any other problems with the film more apparent.
Right.
There's inconsistencies in Ian McKellen's performance, but I think that there were scenes outlining what that performance was doing.
So if somebody took like a compilation of like scenes, highlight scenes of The Keep, and you're like, this is a great movie, what's wrong? Then, you watch the movie, then you realize what's wrong is individual scenes look great.
Yeah.
But piece them together, it doesn't really...
Some great fabric just not sewn into a shirt right.
Exactly.
It's just all messy and all over the place. But there's also something about it that I think is... I want to rewatch it. I really enjoyed watching the film. I was really taken by it. The visual sense of it brought me in. And I think that's what I find very interesting is I look on the message boards for this film and people seem to be saying like, oh, it's absolutely ridiculous and it's kind of bad and not really, sensible whatsoever. But I can't stop watching it.
I know, yeah.
Maybe it's the car crash of movies. You just can't look away.
Yeah.
But anyway, Nick, what else do you think about The Keep as a whole?
I think they should remake it, man. You got the potential. I mean, especially Keep, you can do a green screen, provide a lot of, you can narrow down the set and keep it. I mean, or you can do a 12-hour HBO.
Yeah, I keep thinking about Netflix.
But every time,
would be a great realm for this.
Anytime I think about Michael Mann movie, they should do a 12-hour. Any movie that does a 12-hour HBO special.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you in the sense that like there's elements of this that I think could make for a longer form series that would really dive in. And then you also have other source material because pretty much everything F. Paul Wilson has written fits into this timeline that details a history of the world that we don't know about.
And I think it would definitely pay off.
And you could go back to it then.
Not like a movie.
More.
Yeah.
But I would like to see any version of this film because I do think that there's a lot there to mine. I found the book very captivating. I just want to see. I think that the mystery in the book reveals itself slowly and kind of messes with your expectations of what's going on. There's a lot of people that I kind of had
question this book. What is evil? Is the monster evil? Am I evil? Or
being able to tackle the ambitious idea of having Nazis be kind of your lead characters.
Right.
I mean, they do make a good point in focusing on Magda and her father more in the film as soon as we can get them into the film we do. But the book does start with about 100 pages of Nazis and German soldiers.
Oh yeah, and the SS character of Gabriel Byrne and the German commander Jorgen Perschow character. In the book, they have a constant friction that does play out brilliantly in the book, but you don't see that in the movie.
You don't see it until really the end of the film. And you kind of get a sense that they're maybe not agreeing on things so much. But we get the 100 pages of that, and Camphor is the first character introduced. Like our first prologue, chapter 1 is, hey, it's a
In
Nazi.
the book, right? Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of elements to what the book has that could make for an interesting looking film or a series or some reattempt at it, because
it is.
Looking at the way even that we view Nazis or like white supremacists or like people that we have, like we're dealing with a lot of our racial friction right now in the world, and I think viewing this film in a different sense today would be really interesting to see a reattempt at.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we want to know what you guys think of The Keep, if you can find a copy of it.
You find, right. And keep it.
No, yes, and hold on to it.
And hold on to it, right.
In fact, there's a board game I want to get my hands on. If you find the board game,
and a comic
get
book.
that to
You
me.
made a comic book of it.
Yeah, that's true. So there's definitely attempts at this translation before. We want to know if you guys enjoyed The Keep. Did you think it was a mess? Did you think it was a mess and still enjoy it, like us?
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this content, hey, drop us a like. It's really nice to get involved and keep that going. We want to keep this conversation rolling with everybody else. You can also subscribe and check out every episode of Kyle and Nick on Film. We drop a new one every single week.
Every single week.
Nick, they can even join the Patreon.
Please join the Patreon. Become a team member. Help pick out the movies we talk about. We love talking movies, but we want to talk movies with you.
Yeah, and it's kind of more fun to see what you guys like to talk about too, because again, like we always say, we could talk about just about any movie.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to keep these things down to about 15 to 20 minutes because we go for days. So we want to know what you guys want to talk about. Check out patreon.com/Kyle Nick on Film for more information there as well. Nick, where can we find you?
You can find the St. Paul Filmcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play.
Check out goatfilmreviews.com for all my many thoughts on all my many movies and all my many things I have to say about them. Yeah. That's it for us, guys. Keep your loved ones close. Read a book once in a while, and we'll see you next time.